We are good. We are live. We are recording. We're excited. Hi, Liz. Hi, Matt. Welcome to today's Appy Hour. Super
Hi,
excited.
fellow accountants and bookkeepers.
Hello.
So, Liz, we're so excited today because we're going to be talking about apps for e-commerce, and we have very special app sponsor. So our paid app sponsor today is Avalara, and we have Matt Hammond joining us today, and he's going to talk about how Avalara can solve our sales tax problems, especially with their e-commerce clients, and also talk about the recent Supreme Court ruling and how that could affect our e-commerce clients. So Matthew, thank you so yes, those changes. Yes, so thank you so much for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you on the call.
Absolutely.
Worries, we appreciate it as well. A lot to talk about. Really excited.
There is a lot to talk about. You're right.
There's a ton, and we have quite a few people on the line. We do have our Q&A open, so if you guys have a question, please do type in your questions, and we will be looking at that and answering them as we go through today's session. So very exciting.
Super. Well, Heather, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I will absolutely introduce myself. My name is Heather Satterlee. I am the owner and founder of Satterlee Training and Consulting. My firm is focused on helping QuickBooks users and accountants and bookkeepers, really anybody that is looking to embrace QuickBooks Online and integrate apps into QBO. I'm your girl. That's what I do most of my day, and I absolutely love it. So in addition to that, I am a trainer for Intuit, part of the QuickBooks Online certification training team. So I travel the country with awesome people like Liz too, helping accounting professionals learn QuickBooks Online. So just a little bit about me. I'm also an EA, so I'm licensed to practice before the IRS.
Awesome. So can I just say ditto to everything but the EA? So our firm does primarily the exact same thing. We do integrations with QuickBooks. So QuickBooks really is our business. And so we get involved in any small business situation that is working with QuickBooks. And if we had to say what our niche is, it's really that integrations piece. And e-commerce continues to be a natural fit because we enjoy doing the integrations. It's natural for us to say all of the rest of the ecosystem that revolves around e-commerce or QuickBooks, including e-commerce. So it's exciting. It's a great world to be able to meet a lot of different types of apps and a lot of different types of businesses.
Absolutely. So I wanted to make sure that, can you see our broadcast on and Facebook Live?
Ooh, let me look.
Able to see that.
Let me go see over here.
Just want to make sure our friends can see. Oh, yes, I can see it now. Perfect. So I think we're good. I think we're good. We just want to make sure that we can communicate with all of our friends. So.
And I don't see anybody there having any questions, but if they do.
Awesome. Yeah, for some reason I can't see those questions. So maybe later you can school me on how to see questions on Facebook. So I will man the Q&A inside Zoom, and you will man or woman Q&A on Facebook. Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds like a super plan.
Awesome. All right.
Awesome. Okay. So, with, come back over to my slides here. So being able to join us via Facebook or being able to join us via the, sorry, I lost my slide presentation. There we go. So being able to join via the link or follow us on Twitter. So here's all of the different ways to be able to reach out to us. And then we also have a very exciting, I think I zoomed past it, very exciting next month. Do you want to announce that one before I move?
Yeah, so I will be talking more about this a little bit later, but next month the Appy Hour is going to be taken over by the Intuit developer group. So they're going to come on and talk about this year's $100,000 app showdown, and we're going to have David Leary on, and we'll have Annie Terry on to talk, and we'll also have some folks, some of the finalists from last year, to come on and talk about how their lives and how their businesses have changed since participating in the 100 app showdown.
And I'm just going to be really clear right now with you, Heather. I'm probably going to get emotional because just hearing how these businesses' lives have changed, oh my gosh, it's just going to be really exciting to share some of those stories.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to that as well.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. So let's go ahead and dive into why we're having this webinar, what it means to our people, and just where we're going to start. And so again, going back to what it is that our firm does, because we do that integrations piece, we were getting our current clients calling and saying, hey, we've started selling on e-commerce and we're having some of that import into QuickBooks, and it kind of looks different than what we expected it to look like. And so that's how we got pulled in. And then also having clients who reached out to us and said, we'd also like to start selling online, and do you know anything about where we should start? And so that's how we got involved into the process. And that's where I want to share today what we've learned and what some of those terms are, because in the very beginning, I would have to go say, what exactly do you mean? And so being able to understand, speak it, talk it, you're laughing, Heather. There's a lot of...
No, it's true. I mean, every new client is an adventure. And Matt, I'm sure that you can agree with that. Like, every client has their own individual needs. And that's one of the big challenges of e-commerce, right? Is that everybody needs to track different things for their business. Each business is different. So every time you get a new engagement with an integration, I don't care if you've done 100 e-commerce clients, there's always going to be something unique about that particular client.
Well, and what we 100%. Found was,
Yep.
Instead of just existing in this little bubble right here, the QBO bubble, is once we started using QuickBooks Online, we started being able to connect all of these different solutions. And that's where I think that our firm really changed, is because it is so easy to connect. And so no longer do we just belong in this bubble, but we really exist out here as well with all of those apps that we want to connect, including e-commerce and all of the apps that come with that. So that's where we're going to begin today.
And I have to chime in because this popped into my head and I have to share it. And I'm sure that a lot of you that are viewing are going to be like, oh my gosh, totally, Heather. They are easy to connect, and they're almost too easy to connect. How many times you had a client that connects it themselves and you're like, no. And then, they bring us in, right? To kind of unravel it and untangle it and get it, set up properly. So.
Absolutely. And being able to understand all of these tools helps you to understand what you have included and what you don't have included. So let's just dive in and start going through some of the terminology.
Sounds great.
So if we talk about a web store and a marketplace, those are two different animals. And so whenever our clients say, I'm selling online, it's like, well, how are you selling online? Because a web store is going to be their branded name. And so they're able to be searched for, and then they've got their products visible for sale. Where a marketplace is going to be that they've taken their products and listed them on a marketplace. Like, I love this example of the consignment store. So if you think it's a consignment store, so there's a location, you never know exactly what's going to be for sale there. So you go in and you look that day, they've got purses, or they've got jewelry, or they've got whatever. And so the Gidgets and the Gazmos are sold on a marketplace. And so understanding which type of e-commerce is the foundation for the rest of it. Because then you have to talk about shopping carts. And so with your shopping carts, how is your user experience? Are they able to pull all of those items that they like inside of one shopping cart and then hit the purchase button? And so there's ZenCart and SimpleCart and Shopify and WooCommerce and BigCommerce all have shopping carts built in, but some of these solutions do not. So you've got to understand what they've got available in that platform. And the same thing is true with the merchant service providers. So you've got to look at, are they using Stripe? We're really familiar with QuickBooks Payments. Are they able to take the new iPayment and the new Samsung payment, all those different types of payments and gift cards? And then also the sales tax calculator. And this is where it's really important to make sure that you understand whatever platform that you're using, does it already have these features, including sales tax built in? And some of the answers no, and you have to go out and find those solutions yourself. And that's why I really feel like Avalara, I'm glad that they're here today, because one of the things that they offer is a really great onboarding experience if they don't, your solution doesn't already have a sales tax incorporated. And the same thing's true for the marketing. So the customer service, being able to loop back in and say, how is your purchase experience? That is another solution. So that's not always built into these providers. So let's look at some of the differences. So here we've got Etsy and eBay. Both of these are marketplaces because they allow you to sell your goods on their website. And then you've got Walmart and you've got Amazon. And both of these are retailers and their marketplaces. So they can take your goods and they can sell it on their website as if it's their own, or you can list your goods for sale as on their marketplace. And then you've got WooCommerce and BigCommerce and Shopify. These are just three that are some of the big names that I pulled in. And these are web stores. And so these are going to allow your clients to do that thing that I was talking about in the very beginning, put their brand name on a website to allow them to sell their goods. And so with WooCommerce, you have to know that it's not a point of sale included in it. So if you're going to be using WooCommerce, it's really great for being a web store, but it's not going to allow you to have multiple channels to be able to include the brick and mortar sales that you've got. So you're going to have something in between to talk to your point of sale solution in WooCommerce. And Shopify, if we look over at Shopify Plus, this is where you're starting to be able to have some of that multi-channel experience where you've got brick and mortar sales and then you've got your e-commerce sales. And a fun term that I've been hearing is e-tailing. So I kind of like it. So you've got your retail stores and your e-tail stores. And so Shopify is going to allow you to have that multi-channel experience. And then Lightspeed is the new one that we've been hearing about. And at its core, it was a point of sale system. But then it's got all of these other pieces that they've started integrating with. And so you're able to have a one-stop shop, one user experience. And the thing that's really nice about being able to have all of it under one umbrella is how well it's integrated with each other. So if we look over here at sales channels, and if we understand that the sales channel is just the path of how the product gets to your consumer, this is just the delivery method. And so again, it can be that retail or it can be that e-tail. It doesn't matter how it's getting to them, but it's getting to them. And so if we think that that is being generation one, and then generation two is we started having these multi-channels. So we had the jewelry store that started wanting to be able to sell their goods on Etsy. So now they've got multi-channel. And so with the entry-level multi-channels, what you've got is that was the second generation where you're able to start selling, but it doesn't mean that your inventory is updated in both locations. So you might have sold your necklace on your website, but that doesn't mean that your store inventory knows that that item's been sold. So you have to do a lot of manual adjustments inside of your multi-channel. Omni-channel, if we think about this as being the third generation, this is where people started to realize that there needed to be some communication between all of these different areas of business. So your sales tax, your being able to pull in your marketing, being able to understand where your shipping is going to take that inventory out and update all channels. So that's where omni-channel does a better job of that than the multi-channel. And unified channel, if we call this is fourth generation. This is like the new thing, is we're starting to hear this unified. And that's where everything is really interconnected. And that's why Lightspeed is getting so much attention and other products like that, is that it's allowing you to have all of the different sales and all the different channels that you're selling on, and then also being able to have this communication that takes place in real time. And so if we think about, let me give you an example of, because this is kind of a hard thing to break down, but let me give you an example of a multi-channel versus a unified channel experience. So if I'm going out and I'm buying something off of JCPenney's website, and I want to be able to take all of my shirts, put them in my shopping cart, and I get an alert that says, hey, if you create a user, then we're going to give you 10% off of your shopping cart. So I say, okay, I go and I create the new account, and automatically my shopping cart is notified that I get the 10% off, and I automatically see that discount applied to my shopping cart. That would be unified or omni. But if I think about a multi-channel experience, it would be that same situation. I had all of my goods that were inside of my shopping cart, and I got that little alert saying create an account, and I did, and then it said next step is go over into your email and get the coupon code, and then take that coupon code and then go put it in the shopping cart, so that way the coupon will then update all of my shopping cart so I get the 10% off. That's two different systems that are not interconnected, and so you've got a different user experience. So this is why it's starting to become more of a normal, because we want to have a really good user experience.
That's right. We want it to be as seamless as possible, right? As easy for the customer as you possibly can make it. And what's neat about it is we were able to accomplish some of this, right, using connector apps and bridges and things like that. But now we're starting to see the whole kit and caboodle in a single application, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And it makes it more user-friendly to set up. It makes it more user-friendly to not have to maintain all of these systems, because that's a job, right?
It is.
It's like, going up and going in inventory and adjusting. That's like, wow. That's not one of my favorite parts, but it's like a necessary part. I thought this was interesting, Heather. So Intuit did a survey, or they found a survey, either one. I found this on Intuit's site that was saying that small businesses to mid-sized businesses utilize 14 separate applications. That's huge.
That is huge.
And so if you start thinking about the reason why we're moving towards this unified commerce is because we need to start, narrowing it down to take away that whole, whose job is it to go update all the systems?
Right. And I mean, if you're like me, you have a whole lot more than 14.
all anybody has to do is say, hey, I've got a new tool. And it's like,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
You might go get it in several different users too.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
It's fun. So I briefly want to talk about the supply chain. And this is another one of those pieces that's moving around e-commerce. And this is that whole inventory thing that we're talking about. So supply chain logistics, so that's our PL. And so we've got the warehouse, we've got inventory management solutions. And so being able to say, how much do I need to reorder? There's some automation that can go into that, and then your shipping solutions. And so it's really nice to be able to know what your level of supply chain is going into it. And here's a really nice pyramid. And so if you think about most of our people, like the jewelry maker, is going to be a 1PL. So they're going to make their stuff, it's going to sit in their store, and they're going to ship it out. Those are the really easy people. And then we've got a 2PL. So somebody's going to go store it for you and ship it for you. 3PL, this is whenever you start getting some systems where you still have to manually go in and update to say, I want to reorder this, but then they'll also do the shipping and the managing of the goods in the warehouse. 4PL is where it gets fun. And anything above that, it just becomes like this muddy thing. But 4PL, don't you think so too, Heather?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So 4PL is whenever you start getting some AI built into it. And so in Oklahoma right now, it's like total fall season today. Like you could be wearing sweats outside. And so it makes me think of fall. So if I was a business and I was thinking about selling fall goods, my AI that's built in would actually go out and say, this is the time of year to start buying your pumpkins. And it would automate that, and it would start generating some purchase orders for me automatically.
That's amazing.
It is.
That's amazing.
And then it can talk to your inventory when it comes in. And so these complex scenarios is why it's really important to be able to go to the next piece and say, how do you plot it out? Where does the pieces fit? And so understanding what all is involved, understanding if your platform, your web store or your marketplace includes all of these is really important. And then to also know what direction they talk.
Right. And I think that's the biggest I think that's the biggest thing, that when I'm called in to kind of fix stuff, and I'm sure you can agree with this too, is that's exactly what happens is people haven't taken the time to figure out exactly how the data flows before they jump in and they start implementing the applications. And so it's really important to understand how does that data flow from one piece to another.
Yep.
Because if you don't have that, you're going to end up with errors like duplications. Things won't reconcile. It can get really messy. So.
Absolutely. And even understanding, Avalara, having Matthew on the call makes me want to point out, even understanding where your sales tax solution needs to be connected. So it doesn't need to be connected to QuickBooks Online, right? Because it doesn't need to do anything there. It needs to be connected to your web store, your marketplace. It needs to be able to generate your liabilities at the platform of sales.
Right.
So moving over to how do you want it to import into QuickBooks really depends on the size and type of clients, if they've got inventory or not, and being able to determine how many channels they're selling on. That all determines the complexity of, can they import directly into QuickBooks Online? And
and I'm just going to interrupt to clarify on that. So what you mean, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're saying is like, shopping programs like Shopify or WooCommerce or whatever, they sometimes have a direct integration where it just feeds data in. And you're talking about when you might need like middleware that's actually going to be the buffer, right, between,
Absolutely. And this is one of those areas that's going to be really exciting, because this is a conversation series. So I feel like, this is just this is the platform. We're talking about the definitions and laying some groundwork, because this is a conversation that's going to continue. And so, Heather and I, we had talked about, PayPal and Amazon, some of those integrations that we're going to dive into later and show those. But that would be a situation where maybe you didn't have a lot of complexity and you wanted to connect those apps directly. And so you can pull those in-house and like the 1PL. So Heather, you're going to show a really cool demonstration of how you could do that directly. And then if you had more complexity, being able to understand your complexity and mapping it out. I use some different tools to be able to map it out. And you have to do whatever makes sense to your brain. But SmartDraw has got lots of free workflows and diagrams. And this is just one I went and grabbed off of their site. It's free. You can change the wording. I didn't do anything to this one, but this will help you to communicate to your clients. Do I understand your processes correctly? Do I understand your scenarios? And on top of that, then adding, do I understand the softwares correctly? So knowing how they all lay out and how they connect with each other and talk is key.
No, it is. Absolutely. And I love that. So SmartDraw has these already built out and you just update them for your purpose. That's awesome. And what is the cost of SmartDraw? Is it free or is it something that you need to subscribe to?
This version right here that I'm showing is free. Now they have some paid levels, but some of their basic go and get the diagrams are just free.
That's
and
awesome.
There's tons of them. This is just the e-commerce solution, but there's some for say that you were going in and you were going to redo processes in an office. You could list all those out. Or accounts payable. They have even accounts payable templates.
That's awesome, because I use Visio, which I love. It's it's a Microsoft product, and I really like it. But this looks like if it's kind of plug and play, I like that a lot. So I think I might have to check that out. I'm going to copy and paste the link too in the chat window. So
sure.
If you want to go check it out, you can go grab that in the chat.
Awesome idea. So those levels of complexity, whenever we start talking about there's more pieces that are moving, this is where we start needing to consider some middlewares. And middleware is going to be the thing that lays in between. So if your QuickBooks is here and we're wanting to keep it safe and all of this exists out here, the middleware is what stops some of the errors from happening. And so you're able to say, I want to pick and choose how things talk to QuickBooks. And I've got this list of middleware solutions, and these are all great. Some of the things that you've got over here is one of the unique things about Super Manager is they'll develop something for you, and you purchase it. And so you have to click the button on Super Manager, but you buy it for a very small fee. I think it's like $200, and you own it. And then you can have some one-off things created, some templates created from them. But Zapier, Heather's a big fan, and so watching Heather with Zapier whip and move around is awesome. But if you want somebody else to do it, somebody like Mobility eCommerce or FlowLink or template automation or even Webgility, if you fit in the box, it's really great. That's where I find like Webgility is less flexible than some of these other ones.
Yeah, I think where things really start to get complex is when you have, multiple channels, of course, right? And when you have multiple, payment processors
Right.
that are linking into these different places that you sell, and then the inventory. So when you have those complex inventory needs, like a client needs to put in landed costs into their inventory costs. Those types of things can't, those can't be handled in QBO by itself. They certainly can't be handled in, Shopify or WooCommerce. So you would need to look at more complex solutions.
Exactly. Yeah. And even in the WooCommerce situation, if you need to have point of sale, you're going to have some type of middleware sitting there in order to get your point of sale and your WooCommerce to talk to each other. And that's not even talking about getting over into the communication with QuickBooks. So there's lots of uses for middleware, and that's I think that's because a lot of these tools do a really great job of what they're designed to do, but then outside of that, they just don't. So,
well, yeah, no, I totally hear what you're saying. So what you're saying, like, if you're really good at solving for building a website and an e-commerce store, maybe you're not an accountant, and maybe when you developed the software, you didn't realize that a certain accounting principle needed to be handled.
That's right.
You're building your integration, and we see that all the time, right? Accounting friends. So I think that's a common thing, where we sometimes don't speak the same language.
Exactly. I agree with that. We don't always speak the same language. And I think that as accountants, I think for a while I said, I feel like I'm an IT specialist. And then now that's grown to now I'm not going to say programmer, but, doing more of the integrations. So
right.
It's funny how the accountant term has definitely broadened. And you can find your niche, and you can specialize with somebody like us who likes the integration. And if you like if you like some of the other areas, then you can specialize there. But with the middleware, let me show this example. And so here's my Shopify, and it lives in the middle because it's doing the job of the selling. And then you've got TradeGecko, which is managing all the inventory. So these talk back and forth with each other. And then Amazon is a marketplace. So Shopify will allow you to tap into the marketplace and have that as a channel. So these are all channels. And then you've got your ShipWorks, which is going to send out your goods. I didn't want Shopify talking directly to QuickBooks, so I used FlowLink in this example to be able to say, this is how I want it to start talking to QuickBooks. And that's where I was able to design with FlowLink, you're tapping into a programmer. And so you're able to design a tool or a system to do exactly what it is that your needs are. So in my situation, I wanted to create a sales receipt, and I think I'm just going to hold off in explaining it because I think you've got it, Heather, right?
Yes, I do. I'm going to show that, but I just want to point out here that we don't see sales tax here, right, Matt? And why don't we see sales tax in here? This is Shopify Plus
because it's built in.
Yep. Correct. So one of the cool things is, and we'll talk about the other versions of Shopify, but if you are on Shopify Plus, you're actually going to have an Avalara included account, if you will. We call it AI. So Avalara is going to be the tax engine behind all of the Shopify Plus merchants. So we've worked with Shopify Plus, and we have a partnership arranged for the folks that are on that higher level, and they're actually going to get a go live. They're going to work with Avalara, and we're going to be the ones that are calculating tax on their website behind the scenes, if you will. And we'll talk a little bit further in detail as we get to some of the sales tax 101 here in a few minutes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Heather, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to pass presenter to you. And I'm going to let you take over.
All right, just give me 1 second and let me get to the first slide that I would like to show.
Okay, and then while you're doing that, I'll just say, as far as like building off of what Matt said, he was talking about the Avalara Power Shopify Plus, And there's some really great reports that are available in Avatax. Some
Mm-hmm.
great, really detailed reports that just were included as part of it. Okay, well, I'll be quiet now.
No, that's no,
You're
no.
good.
You don't have to. You never have to be quiet, Liz.
Yeah, I was
You
just-
chime in whenever you want.
I was still in the space.
Right? No, no. So I've included. I just pulled up this slide here. I'm actually going to go in and demo 2 apps that work with Shopify. One is Bold, and Bold is the app that's in the App Store, in the Shopify App Store. When it says connect with QuickBooks, you're using Bold. So that's who you're actually buying the app from. And then we're also going to take a look at OneSaaS for Shopify. And I use this. I mean, you have WooCommerce, you have lots of other, you have Magento, you have all kinds of different, store applications that you can use, but essentially they work very similarly. So I just picked one because we only have an hour, and I'm just going to show you how the information can flow in and the different types of things that you're going to need to think about as you're setting up these different apps in QuickBooks. So I've got the Appy Hour Lounge, which is our test QuickBooks company, which now has a whole bunch of e-commerce stuff in it. And I set up an Appy Hour web store, and I've connected the Intuit QuickBooks Online, which is the Bold app, which connects QuickBooks Online, and I've connected OneSaaS. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and kind of show you what that setup looks like and talk about some of the different settings that you're going to need to be aware of. And then I'll also show you how some of these transactions look in QuickBooks. So when I click on the Bold app, it's gonna I'm gonna have to pay for it. So the Bold app, I think, is $10, and you get up to 20 or 200 transactions, and then they will continue to charge you every 200 transactions with a maximum of $29. So when you first sync it, it's going to launch the settings. And in the settings is where you're going to go ahead and you're going to set up the mapping between Shopify and QuickBooks Online. So hopefully this isn't going to take too long to load. If it does, we may have to switch back to the slides. So, okay, good, it's loaded here. So in the settings, you're going to go ahead and you're going to map out the different products, income accounts, gift cards, the different accounts, general ledger accounts inside QuickBooks Online that need to be associated with different types or different places in the Shopify program. And you do have options as far as tracking Shopify inventory quantities in QBO. And then you also have some options on how, which accounts you want the payments to be imported into when you send them over to QuickBooks. So you do have some flexibility as far as this mapping, but it is very, very simple. It does handle multiple sales tax agencies. So when you set up your Shopify store, if you have physical presence, and Matt's going to talk all about this in just a couple of minutes, you have a place in Shopify where you can go in and set that up. Once you do that, you'll have to come back in and you'll have to map each one of the states that you have Nexus in to the appropriate sales tax agency inside QuickBooks Online. So you've got to remember to do that as well. Just keep in mind that the reporting in Shopify for the sales tax isn't amazing, and there isn't any way to create those returns. But Matt, where you're going to talk about, there is a solution out there for regular Shopify users that don't have access to the full Avalara product inside Shopify Plus, right? You have another kind of Avalara Lite product that syncs with regular Shopify.
Exactly. And it works for regular Shopify, Pro, Basic, and Advanced, and it's also gonna sync and be able to help folks extract and pull their marketplace data to give them an ease of use as far as prep and filing tax returns, and we'll definitely dive into that. Yep.
Awesome. So we're going to go through and we're going to put in the product export settings. You're going to want to pay attention in any one of these, any type of application, how the information is going to be sent over to QuickBooks. So here it's saying is that it can send the products from the orders in Shopify using the title and variant, which is a Shopify term, or it can use the SKU. So when you're thinking about integrating these web store or these applications to QuickBooks, you're going to need to understand how they talk to each other. You're going to need to understand, do you need to track inventory in QuickBooks Online? Are you going to keep the quantity on hands happening in QuickBooks? Do you want the transactions to post directly to the general ledger as income and expense accounts, or do you want to keep track of the inventory balances in QuickBooks? And all of that is going to drive how you're selecting these settings in the different apps. So one of the things that I found about this bold, the bold setup, is that it has only a one-way sync for inventory. So what I can do with the bold app is I can upload all of my items from QuickBooks Online into Shopify, and it will bring in the quantities. And then what will happen is as I start to create sales in Shopify, it will send those over as sales receipts to QuickBooks. And if it is linked to the inventory items, it'll actually reduce the inventory quantities in QuickBooks Online. That's about as sophisticated as bold gets. So if you need a bi-directional sync, if you want to be updating the quantities from QuickBooks into Shopify, you're going to need something a little bit more flexible than the bold app. But it was really easy. I set it up over the weekend. It was really easy to set up. I felt like, you know, for a very simple client, might be just what they need. But if your client needs more advanced inventory functionality, if they want to control the different, you know, payment methods and how those are being posted to QuickBooks, you're probably going to want to look at a different solution than this, because it's very, very simplistic and it doesn't have that bi-directional sync for the inventory. The other app that I wanted to show you is the OneSAS app, and I'm just going to do this quick because I want to dive into our toast and give Matt a chance to talk. And I do have all of these slides for you guys in the deck, so you guys can follow along with the information. But here, what you would do is you would configure OneSAS, and OneSAS allows you to connect a bunch of different apps. It doesn't just have to be Shopify and QuickBooks. That's what we're doing here, but you can also connect other apps as well. And you would go ahead and configure that. So as you go through, you're going to have the same type of process where you're going to select what type of transaction you want to go to QuickBooks, whether you want to bring in the detailed customer information or use a single online sale customer in QuickBooks. You can choose to add payments in QuickBooks and to pull the products to sync the inventory or not. One of the nice things about OneSAS is it does have a bi-directional inventory sync. So it will update from QuickBooks and it will update to Shopify. You can also configure the tax. So you can see we have the mapping to the different sales tax agencies. And then we also, this is a little bit different from what we saw in bold, we have the ability to map different types of payments to different accounts. So if you need flexibility on how your payments are grouped together, OneSAS is a better option for you, right? Because it's giving you the ability to the ability to select multiple accounts. So once you select all of these, and you're going to need to do your homework and rely on help, both of these options allow a paid setup, so they will actually onboard you and set you up. So you can go ahead and check out that. In QuickBooks, I just wanted to show you what a couple of these transactions look like. So this is a transaction from the Bold app. Let me just open that up. So it brought in the Bold app, and it comes in, it uses I had set it up to use the existing product or service. You can see that it's doing that. If I click on the transaction journal, we can see where the inventory and cost of goods sold accounts are being utilized behind the scenes. Okay, so you can see how all of that is linked together. You know, the OneSAS transactions looks very, very similar here. So it looks almost identical, right? So as the other ones, we've got our customer information, it's got our items, we've got our sales tax here, and it's still relieving the inventory. Now, if we were to go with a different type of app, and I'm gonna go ahead and open this up. I think this isn't the right one. Let me find the one that you had created, Liz. Liz actually set up one that comes from, which app did this one come from, this particular sales receipt that you imported?
It's from FlowLink, and so it's Shopify. I think that was it right there. Was that not?
Was that it? Let me go in and look.
Yeah, because my customer name is Shopify. Shopify sales customer.
It was on the 813, right? So
oh, there it is.
Then it's this one right here.
There it is. Yep, that's it.
Okay. So the difference with this particular import from the ones that we brought in from OneSAS and Bold is that she was able to do a summary sale. OneSAS will allow you to do a summary sale, bring in all your sales in a single transaction. I don't have one to show you for that, but this is the FlowLink transaction, and what she was able to do, what Liz was able to do, was to basically create that sales receipt that captures all of the summary sales and the payment information in a single transaction. And then depending on how these items are mapped in QuickBooks to undeposited funds or the bank account, you know, that's going to determine how each of the items are hitting or each of these transactions are hitting the general ledger. So basically, we just wanted to show you the different options here, the different types of products that are available and how they differ from each other. So that was a really, really quick demo. I did include some screenshots for you to go back and take a peek at that. But what I'd like to do now is raise a toast to
Drum roll.
Drum roll.
There we go.
All right, so we're going to learn all about Avalara Avatax now from Matt, and we have our drink today is the Avalara Watermelon Crush, and there's the recipe.
Here's mine.
And first of all, we want to thank Avalara for sponsoring our show today. We really appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. Here's to Avalara, and here's to Avalara helping us to navigate that Supreme Court ruling and helping us all to learn what we need to know about how this is going to affect our clients. So thank you for being on the show.
I love that.
And let's try this.
Let's just drink.
Let's just do
Definitely.
it. Oh, that's good.
That's really good.
Oh, it's so good. Annie's saying, yum, it's so summery and delicious. It is. It's watermelon flavor.
And my watermelon, like I froze it, and so it was like big chunks.
Yeah.
It's like I can swirl it around and get some pulp in there. But that's really it's very refreshing.
Mine looks different because I actually used watermelon juice and I filled my ice tray with it. And so mine's watermelon juice instead of actual chunks of watermelon. So.
Is it like sad that this is my favorite part? Like I've loved talking about eCommerce. But it's like you said drink and I'm like, oh, I'm back in.
I actually put some blueberries in mine too because I went to New Hampshire last week and we went blueberry picking. I'm like, I'm going to put some blueberries in mine as well.
Blueberries, love it.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, so Matt, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been with Avalara, and then Liz has a couple questions she asks all of our guests on the Appy Hour, and then we're going to let you dive right into your presentation.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, thank you, Heather. Thank you, Liz. And thanks, everybody, for taking time out of your day to join. And my name is Matt Hammond. I've worked at Avalara for a little over 4 years. And I was a sales rep at first. And now I have a small sales team that I manage here. And we're actually working on kind of the QuickBooks and the small office, home office market. And so we work with a lot of QuickBooks users and WooCommerce, and we also handle a lot of the folks that are working as far as selling on marketplaces and kind of educating them on where they may need to calculate tax and if they're just new to starting their business, what are some best practices to get compliant? And if you haven't been compliant in the past couple of years or when you started, how can we remedy that and how can we make sure you're compliant moving forward? So been here for over 4 years and I talk about this every day. So it's a very, sales tax is a very boring subject, but Avalara is a really, really fun and cool company, and we have some great technology that can help automate compliance for businesses. Awesome.
And actually, yeah, you say, sales tax isn't very exciting, but I would feel like the last couple of months, it's been super exciting. Like that's all you see in accounting news, right?
Right.
There have been a lot of phone calls. A lot has changed in the last 60 to 90 days, and then we'll talk a lot about that here in the next few minutes.
Awesome. So,
awesome.
Liz, do you want to go ahead and ask our 4 questions?
I'm gonna say that one of the questions that I have is how do you feel your customers get the best advantage from using Avalara? So what I mean is why Avalara?
I'd say with everything that's changed recently, and even before the South Dakota versus Wayfair ruling, is that everybody's always been reactive to sales tax, and now's the time to truly be proactive and make a business decision to proactively get compliant and think about as your business is going to grow. And the reason people benefit the most is when they are thinking about automating. We have a very cost-effective solution, and we have the best technology on the market to feed into whatever marketplace or whatever platform they're actually selling on. So I'd say folks that have to collect tax in multiple states and are selling products and or services, that have varying taxability, if there was ever a time to automate, it's now. And if you fast forward probably 7 years from now, I don't think anybody will be doing sales tax manually. And that's typically Avalara's, that's typically our competition, is folks that never knew there was a software out there to automate tax compliance.
Well, and I'm going to go ahead and answer one of my questions for you, but I'm going to say one of the things that I feel like as an accountant who is helping clients find these solutions, Avalara's price model has changed significantly. And so I have found it to be way more affordable than previously. I want to say thanks. Because it has allowed us to be, I love what you said, being proactive with sales tax, because I've never thought of it that way, but absolutely that is what's important, is to be able to say, I understand what's happening, and now let me proactively make a decision.
Definitely. And it's one of those things where we felt that, for the QuickBooks community specifically, we wanted to have a very cost-effective solution. And if you're just in one state, you're doing a couple hundred transactions, or you're just starting out and you want us to plug in to calculate tax, it starts as low as $50 annually. So, it's a very cost-effective solution, and it's not going to break the bank for somebody who hasn't even sold a product yet. So it's very easy from an entry-level standpoint, and also getting it up and running and getting live on Avatax.
Well, you just answered my third and fourth questions, so awesome.
Sounds good. And if any,
content, I really am.
Great.
Good. And if any questions pop up to the audience today while I'm talking, and I'm going to run through some slides quickly so we have some time, but type them in and we can answer any of the ones that do come up throughout the next few minutes.
And we'll do a poll towards the end where our viewers can let us know if they'd like your team to reach out to them. So we'll do that as well.
Perfect.
We'll send that along. So remember to vote in that poll, guys, in just a little bit. So I'll go ahead and advance your slides.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And Heather, I'll let you know when we need to jump from one to the next. But this is really, everyone, what changed in the past 60 days. I mean, everything changed for the small company or the e-commerce seller or the folks that were only in one state. So basically a ruling was overturned that stood for 20 to 30 years that said that you initially had to have a physical presence in order to charge tax. And that's simply not the case anymore. Now, you still, if you have a physical presence, you still are required to collect tax, and we'll talk about that here in another slide. But Wayfair versus South Dakota is essentially the beginning of the changing of the tides, if you will. So economic nexus, you'll see a bunch of states in blue that already have economic nexus rules in place. The states that are following and that are now able to come up with their new legislation and new rules for their individual states are looking at, if you don't have a physical presence, but you do over 200 transactions, or you do $100,000 in revenue. So let's say you live in Florida, but you're doing $100,000 in revenue in Texas, you may need to get registered potentially in that state to then collect taxes on all of your sales ongoing. And the good thing is Avalara has a whole team of tax advisory services individuals that are made up of former CPAs, tax attorneys, state auditors that can help determine if you have nexus, and we'll talk about that here in a minute, and or can help monitor it on an ongoing basis. But really, what changed is that now you have to pay attention to every single sale you complete across the state, across the country, in all of your locations. So what I've told most folks in the last 2 months is you need to monthly maybe run a report, whether it's in QuickBooks or in Avatax, and see, what are my thresholds, right? Am I doing over 150 sales a month in California? Okay, if that's one of those states, I may need to get registered, heading into 2019. And I'll put something in the webinar chat here is just a link to our page, so you can take that and save it and open it up or bookmark it. It'll have a lot of the individual states thresholds, and I'll talk about it here in a minute. You can go to the next slide, Heather. And I'm not going to read this one. I would love to, but this will be something we'll send out the whole slide deck. But this is just going to talk about some frequently asked questions, some things that are really important. These come up a lot. Now's the time, like I mentioned earlier, to truly be proactive when it comes to sales tax, and think about your business, year 2, year 3, year 4 down the road. If you know you're going to have people and reps in other states, now's the time to go ahead and get registered. And you can go to the next one. All right, this is not me, as you guys can see on the screen, but prior to this ruling, these were typically the reasons where companies would have to get registered to collect or remit sales tax. So nexus is an industry term that states you have established some sort of physical presence or a threshold in that state to have an obligation to collect and remit tax. So let's say you're located in Florida. Do you go to trade shows in Texas? Do you drop ship out of California? Do you have inventory that lies in Ohio? Think about boots on the ground. Think about product. Think about where you're traveling for your business. Those are all reasons where you may have to get registered outside of the state that you are currently located in. Now, the economic nexus is addition to this. So if you ever have members or employees or contractors or 1099s, those are all reasons where you may have to get registered to collect and remit sales tax on an ongoing basis. Each state, I will point out, number one, I'm not a CPA or tax attorney, so I can't give advice, but each state is different. If you're ever in doubt or you're trying to figure out where you may need to, look at the DOR, Department of Revenue website for that individual state. A lot of times they will consider drop shipping or inventory a nexus building activity, or it may not be, but each one of those states is going to be different. So you need to keep in mind to look at those, as you have some time, or consult with a CPA or a tax attorney. Good to go for the next one. All right, and this is really important. So if you are a QuickBooks user or you have a personal website like WooCommerce or 3D Cart, this is the general conception, and one of the reps on my sales team says it all the time. Zip codes are for delivering mail. They're more for the mailman to deliver mail. They're not for calculating sales tax. And 9 out of 10 folks that I speak to think that calculating sales tax is done by zip codes. In some states, that may be fine. Like Massachusetts has a flat rate of 6 1/4. You don't need a software to tell you to charge that, right? Zip codes aren't always accurate, and they're going to have varying percentages in different states. They're going to make you think you're doing it right, and the standard tax tools or standard tax functionality in most shopping carts and/or in QuickBooks Desktop and online is typically going to be based on zip codes. And the next slide will give you a great illustration. This is one of my favorite slides that I like to show. So let's say hypothetically you're selling into Commerce City, Colorado. This is the same zip code, the same neighborhood, and the same street in Commerce City, Colorado. You can see all of the houses in blue have a tax rate of 9.25%. And that's a composite rate of city, county, cultural, etc. All the houses in green or yellow, however it's coming across, have a tax rate of 4.75%. This is why I say when we do rooftop level calculations in QuickBooks, if you had 1,000 transactions for that month and you charge 4.75%, when you were supposed to be charging 9.25%, that can be a big problem when it comes time to file your tax return or handle the remittance. Because at the end of the day, the states don't care how much you charge. If you charge 4.75, that's fine. But if you should have been charging 9.25%, you're going to be on the hook for that almost 5% delta, right? So this is where it comes into play, where if you have a platform that Avalara can integrate to, which is specifically desktop and online, we can definitely offer a rooftop level calculation, as well as determining if in fact your products and services that you're selling are even taxable. And I know I'm speaking really, really quickly, so you can reach out to me after, but we're good to go to the next slide.
I feel like Vanna.
All right, so for the FBA sellers, right? What if you're selling on Amazon and they're fulfilling your orders? The Amazon Fulfillment by Amazon program, they have an algorithm where they can put your products in any of the states where they have warehouses. So if you're looking on the screen here, there are 30 states that Amazon has a presence. 26 of those 30 states deem that third-party inventory, basically FBA, is the nexus building activity. Now, there are a couple of states that are different, right? North Carolina has a dot on it where I'm located. North Carolina just has a fulfillment center, or excuse me, a sorting center. So it's not an actual fulfillment center. So it's not a nexus building activity. But if you decide to enroll in the FBA program, you potentially have to get registered in up to 26 states. It's very, very challenging. It's very hard. It's worth a conversation. And it's one of those things where a lot of folks that have been selling on Amazon for years and years are now trying to figure out, do I just get registered? Do I address the $500,000 of tax I may owe the state of California for the past 10 years? And there, we've seen some folks that have, just started up and said, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and get registered now and hope California doesn't call me. Or folks that are saying, hey, I raised my hand. I did $3 million over the last 3 years. I want to talk and kind of come clean and start fresh. So it is tricky if you decide to go in the FBA program as well as selling on some marketplaces. Good for the next one?
Matt, I'm going to ask you a question on this one. So if, say that I am part of the FBA program and I haven't made any changes, is Avalara going to come along and say, hey, it's time, or are they going to calculate any taxes for us and start saying, okay, you've met a threshold or a quantity, you need to do something now?
I can promise there's going to be a lot of emails from our Avalara internal emailing system to make you more aware of what is going on. Where I think we're working on a tool to potentially to potentially help out with, meeting some of those thresholds. And obviously, if you're an Avalara customer, you have access to our tax advisory services team to work on Nexus monitoring to see when you may reach some of those thresholds. Yes.
So monitoring is
All right,
happening.
good. Yep, Nexus monitoring. Yes, ma'am. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of how it works with Avalara, and I know we're at about 6 minutes, so I'm going to go really quick. But Avalara is not a on-premise solution, right? So everything's done in the cloud. So, and you can click one more time, so you can see we have a download a plugin for QuickBooks Desktop, QuickBooks Online. It's very simple. You can install it in 10 to 15 minutes. You can actually purchase it in the App Store for QBO. But you download our plugin. You tell us what states you want us to collect and remit tax in, simply by checking a box, and then tell us what you're actually selling. And then when you go to save an invoice, and I'll get to this, you can actually jump to the next slide, and it's kind of a better visual for the QuickBooks users. So when you go to save an invoice, and as long as the ship to address is in one of the states you've told Avalara you have an obligation to collect and remit tax, when you go to save that invoice, it's going to reach out to our tax engine, which is represented by that A in the cloud. And in real time, we're going to properly assign the rates and properly assign the rules based on that ship to address in real time, and put a tax calculation back into QuickBooks as a line item in under 0.2 of a second. The first thing we're doing is actually converting that address, and if you can see it, it's 501 Main Street. We're converting that to latitude, longitude, and pinpointing it down on a map to give a rooftop level calculation. Then, once we've done the determinations, we can offer the full compliance suite where we can actually handle the filing and the remittance to the states and any local jurisdictions on your behalf. Filing of the returns, if we're plugged into your QuickBooks platform, is around $50 per filing. I mentioned earlier the plugin to get into QuickBooks starts as low as $50 annually. The big thing that I like to point out to most folks, and I have a pre-recorded demo that I can send over and put in the chat box before we cover everything out, but you'll see the tax item down at the very bottom under the invoice. If you're collecting tax in multiple states, let's say, for example, Texas has 1,485 taxing jurisdictions, that's 1,485 tax items you have to up to date every single month. If you're using AvaTax, the one tax item moving forward is going to be AvaTax, and that's the trigger for your QuickBooks to call our tax engine in real time. Good?
That's awesome.
That's amazing. I had a client years ago, I mean, we're going back, gosh, 7 years ago, that was multi-channel sales. They had a website, they had retail stores, and we implemented AvaTax, and it was a savior because they were opening up new stores pretty much monthly. They're growing really fast. It was just such a time saver and a lifesaver as far as keeping it simple.
And as soon as you add a new state, it's as simple as checking a box on the Avalara side and saying, hey, I now want you to start collecting tax or calculating it starting September 1st in Georgia. It's as simple as that. And I just put a little 2-minute screencast video that I recorded of myself walking through the platform so everybody can see that as well.
Awesome.
I'm going to take that and post it in the Facebook page too.
Awesome. So one of the good things about Avalara is our scalability, right? We have over 600 plus, I think the number I get, there's like a ticker somewhere in somebody's email here at Avalara. I think we have 632 pre-built integrations. So whether you're on QuickBooks today and you're moving to NetSuite, or you're just using Excel and you're then going to move into QuickBooks, or using 3D Card or Demandware, we cover CRMs, we cover e-commerce, as well as point of sales. And then again, you can see the major ERPs that are kind of our core partnerships here at Avalara, where we have a pre-built integration where it's a simple download. We install almost every one of them. We can install the QuickBooks platform for you, the plugin. If you're not tech savvy, my dad is not tech savvy, so I'd probably suggest we install it for him. But we can definitely help out, and they're very seamless integrations and very scalable. So you can never outgrow Avalara.
Nice.
So I'll go real quick. I won't read all of this, but to activate your account, you can either purchase Avalara online. You can reach out to my sales team. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. If you collect tax in one state and you sell one product, it only takes a few minutes to configure everything. If we're going to file the tax returns, you'll just have to sign a power of attorney, put banking information in. We'll pull the funds from you. We guarantee to fill the forms out on time once you tell us which ones and how often. And then we can actually pull the funds from an account that you designate to handle the remittance as well.
Sounds awesome.
And real quick before we jump, one other thing for the marketplace sellers. If you're just using, if you're just selling on Etsy, or you're just doing eBay, or you're just doing Amazon, you're doing fulfilling your own orders or whatnot, we also have a prep and filing solution called Avalara Trust File, and I'll put this in the chat as well. This is more so a tool for when you don't need a calculation or you're selling on a marketplace. So Etsy, if you're just an Etsy user, those marketplaces are already going to be calculating tax. The responsibility of the seller is to simply file a tax return and handle the remittance. Trust file starts at $240 annually, and it's $18 per return. We don't do any calculations, but it's simply going to pull that data from your seller account and then help you with assisting of the filing. So it's a prep and file solution.
Awesome. I have a client that's going to be implementing that this month. So
awesome. And I'll put another 2-minute snippet video that's right in the chat box as well for Trust File. And these are pretty raw. These are just Matt recording, so they're not all fancy. So just to leave with that. But thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time and enjoy the Appy Hour. And we definitely have the apps to help automate tax compliance for every sort of business that is out there.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you being here today. I've enjoyed being able to share with our viewers how to use Avalara and why to contact them. So I appreciate that.
Awesome. I'm going to jump to because some people are going to need to get off the line. I do want to do the coolest thing that we've done this month, but it's going to go over. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and finish up.
You want to do the poll first, Heather?
Yeah, let's do the poll.
And then let's skip over them.
Yeah, and then we'll do that. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that. Would you like someone from Avalara to reach out to you for more information? If you could just fill that out, I will forward the information on over to Matt, and he will make sure that either he or someone on his team gets right out to you. So excellent. And I'm just going to leave that up for a minute. And then we're going to talk. The slide I'm going to show you next is encouraging you guys to go ahead and visit our website, view our recorded episodes. So if you came in late and you want to see what happened at the beginning, you can do that by visiting our Facebook page or our website. You can read our blog, you can send us a message, and then don't forget to like us on Facebook. You can join the Appy Hour Lounge Facebook group, and make sure that you register for our monthly webinars so that you get reminded when we're running our webinars on the second Tuesday of each month. So huge thank you, Matt, for coming on and sponsoring the show and for sharing this information with us. We really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and close out the poll, and I want to just highlight,
some exciting news.
Some exciting news. So next month, as soon as my my PowerPoint decides to,
we see it there. It's just baby size.
It's baby size. It's just not. It's wait. Watch. Can I do this? Is it going to let me know? It's not going to let me do anything. So next month, this is so exciting. So next month on September 11th, the Appy Hour is going to be taken over by the Intuit developer team, and we're gonna have finalists from last year's $100,000 App Showdown come on and talk about how the App Showdown has changed their business. The Showdown is happening again this year. It's actually still in the application phase. On August 16th, you can go on out to their website, which I will go ahead and copy in the chat, and you can start to vote for the 10 finalists. So we encourage you to do that. We'll be speaking more about that next week. We'll have Annie Terry on and David Leary on the show to talk about that, along with a lot of different guests. We're going to have a lot of people on that show. It's going to be so much fun. I'm super excited about it.
Me too. And this is what I was telling you. I'm going to get emotional. All these people talking about their life. The girl in me will start coming out.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the share and see if I can figure out what's going on with my PowerPoint. And then I'm going to come back on and show, for those of you that want to stay, I'm going to go ahead and show the coolest thing that we did this month. So if I can get, hopefully it's going to work. I think my PowerPoint's mad at me.
And let me like give some intro into what you're talking about. So
that'd be great
if they want to stay. So the thing that we've been talking about is how you want your e-commerce solutions to talk to QuickBooks. And so what Heather's going to demo is a situation that's a simple scenario where you've got one solution and you want it to talk directly to QuickBooks. And maybe you don't like the way that the information comes over, but you could use Zapier in order to pull out the pieces that you want to have talk to QuickBooks. And so you can create a summary of sorts.
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is my PowerPoint isn't cooperating.
Do you want me to be presenter?
Yeah, do you mind doing that? Can you go ahead and share it out and go ahead and pull up that slide. So as everybody knows, I am a huge Zapier lover. I love it. I love playing with it. I try to play with it at least every day.
Are you seeing me?
I see it, yes.
Cool.
So I have built a Zap. There is an in-app tool in Zapier called the email parser. And the email parser allows you to forward emails to the tool, and it will actually parse data from the email. And if you're a Square user, I don't know if some of you are Square users, if you are, then you know that you get a daily sales summary report from Square at the end of each business day that shows you your gross sales, it shows you your discounts, sales tax, and other information. And so we can actually take that information, parse it using the email parser by Zapier, and create fields and then map them to a sales receipt in QuickBooks Online. So wouldn't it be cool if you were able to take this, which is, you know, the email that you see, and turn it into the sales receipt that you see in front of you? Well, that is totally possible through the email parser by Zapier. So can you go ahead and forward to the next slide?
Sure.
Thanks. So to set up the email parser by Zapier, what you're going to do is you first of all have to have a Zapier account. So in order to zap to QuickBooks, you do have to pay. You can use a starter plan, which is $20 a month, and in my opinion, it's well worth it. As soon as you start building Zaps, and I'm sure if Neil Kugler's still on the line, she will totally attest to this, that once you start building Zaps, it's really hard to stop because the possibility.
There's a Zap for that.
There's a Zap for pretty much everything. So, yep, Neil's like, yep, too true. So what you can do is you sign up for the account, and then what you do is you sign up for the email parser. Once you sign up for the parser, you can create a mailbox that has a unique address. Then what you can do is you can forward the emails that come in from Square to that email address. And the easiest way to do that is to set up the parser email address as a forwarding address in your email, and you don't have to forward all your emails there. And then you set up a filter so that the email that comes in from Square that says daily sales summary automatically gets forwarded to the parser. Once it gets forwarded to the parser, the data is automatically parsed based on the fields that you set up. So what that looks like is as the info. Can you advance the next slide?
Sure. Yep.
I may go in and demo. Let's see what we got there. Yeah. So once you email, send an email in, you simply highlight the fields that you want to create data, that you want to use that data in the sales receipt. So
okay,
for example,
the next one.
No, go back. I wasn't done there. Sorry. No, that's okay. So right here, you can see that right next to the gross sales number, there's $200. So what you would do is you would highlight that $200 and you would give it a name that you're going to be able to identify once you get into Zapier. So I call that gross sales. Makes sense, right? And then I would go through and I'd highlight the amount next to refunds. I'd highlight the amount next to discounts and comps. And I'd highlight any other fields or any other data that I'm going to want to include in that Zap. Now you can go ahead and advance to the next slide.
Awesome.
Once you do that, you're going to go ahead and create your Zap, and you're going to select the mailbox that you created. So you can see that my mailbox name is Sales STC123, and that's the email address. So it's going to go ahead and go on out to that parser, and when a new email comes through and it's parsed, it's going to trigger this automation to run. So go ahead and go to the next slide.
Awesome. So showing the email.
Yep, you'll go ahead and view the email, and that's where you'll be able to see the data. Now, if you look at the bottom of the slide towards the right on the second screenshot, you can see the parse, and it shows you the output there. So you can see the discounts, the processing fees, the gross sales. That's all the information that it took out of that email. And what it's done is it's converted it to data that I can then send to QuickBooks. So let's go to the next slide. All right, so then I'm going to go into the action step. So with Zapier, you always have a trigger step, which is where it's going to go out. Something happens in an app, it grabs the data, pulls it into Zapier, and then the action step is where you're going to take that data and you're going to make it do something in another app. So in this case, we're going to create a sales receipt in QBO. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect to QuickBooks, and then I'm going to map the parse data, just like you can see in that square, from the trigger to the fields in QuickBooks on the sales receipt. So for example, right here, I'm looking at the line amount. I'm going to grab that parsed field that I created called gross sales, and it's going to send that $175 right on, or $750 right on over to QuickBooks in the sales receipt. Go ahead and advance the next slide. And I need to go through and I need to map all of the fields and the data from the parser.
This next one is the
oh, that's that one.
conclusion of our webinar.
So I showed on the very beginning slide that, you know, it creates a sales receipt. So what will happen is after I've mapped all of those fields to QuickBooks, every single time an email comes in from Square, instead of creating individual sales the way that the Square integration does, that we all kind of don't like very much, I can actually have it just take that summary information and summarize the sales for the entire day in a single sales receipt. And the coolest part of the whole thing is I don't have to do anything. It's completely automated. I spend, you know, 20 minutes setting up the parser and setting up the Zap, and I'm done. So,
okay, can I go and like say you're spending 20 minutes to set it up, but maybe somebody else would say, how about you set it up?
Yeah, if
so
they want me to
say, come to your class.
Or Neil Kugler, who's on the call too. If you guys know Neil Kugler, she's a Zapper, expert Zapper. She could set it up for you too. And if you want to learn about more about Zapier, I do a Zapier workshop. So you can sign up for that. That's on my website, which is satterleyconsulting.com. If you click on courses, there's an area for you to register for that.
Awesome.
So definitely, you know, check that out. Thank you, everyone.
Neil
saying we should call it Zappy Hour.
No, we got to do all of the apps.
We got to do all the apps, but that's a good, we could have a Zappy Hour for sure.
Heather, we have to show our shirts that we're wearing our Appy Hour shirts.
Yes, we have our Appy Hour shirts. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for taking an hour plus out of your day. Thanks for those of you. It looks like most of you stayed on for our extra bonus. Definitely check out next month's Appy Hour with the $100,000 app showdown. So excited for that. Can't wait for that session. And we'll see you guys next time. Liz, always wonderful to see you. Mwah.
Mwah. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.